Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. The GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Go check it out. All podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it, you can find it. You can listen to it. A lot of great different types of content on there. I am your host, Kayvon, as always, coming to you guys live. I hope everyone's having a lovely weekend, a lovely Saturday as we head into Christmas week coming up this week. I think Christmas is officially on a Friday this week. I think that's right. That is correct as I look at my calendar, which is pretty cool. We've got an NFL game on Christmas Day as well as the usual NBA games, which I'm always here for. Love some of that. So hopefully everyone's getting their Christmas shopping done. We have a jam-packed Saturday for you in terms of what to talk about in the sports world. Lots of fun stuff on this Saturday as we have 2 NFL games. That's right, the NFL is always trying to do everything they can to be in the news, every day of the week. Well, they put 2 games today, so we'll have some college football mixed in with 2 NFL games, as well as a bunch of other things going on before we enter in Week 15 of our Sunday slate of games for the NFL. And as I said, Christmas is coming up next Friday, this coming Friday, so hopefully everyone's either has already done their Christmas shopping. If you're someone that doesn't put it off to the last minute, you do it right, or you're going to do it this week, a bit of a late start, but I can't blame you. I personally am the worst Christmas shopper ever. I literally do not know how to get gifts. I'll even do this with my girlfriend at times, and even just with my parents. I'll say something that I want to get them, to them, and look at their facial reaction, just to see if it's something they would be excited about, because I have no idea how to get gifts. It's actually pretty pathetic. It's something that I need to work on, but I'll do it all the time, and then it ends up just completely giving away what I'm actually getting for my girlfriend or my parents, and they already know then. So it's pretty bad. Pretty much might as well just put the computer in front of my girlfriend and say, hey, what do you want? Pick it out and I'll just buy it, because that's kind of the all-time low that I have gotten to in terms of getting gifts. Hopefully you guys are a little bit better than me. I can always use the advice though, so hit me up on Twitter at Kayvon_sports. I would appreciate that, and I think my girlfriend would as well, because she might be able to get some better gifts or maybe a better surprise instead of already knowing, because I'll get a good gift, I will. It's just I don't know how to pick it out myself. Maybe I'm lacking that creative gene, we could say. I think that would be a fair statement. So I'll just throw some things out there while we're talking, having a conversation. And if you kind of see her face perk up a little bit, she gets excited about it, then all right, I can work with that. I can work with that. So something that I'm working on in my end over here, as I am bad Christmas shopper. And it's a weird year, right? Not everyone's going to get to have Christmas with their family, with their friends because of COVID. Vaccines are now getting handed out, which are pretty cool, to the essential workers first, which is how it should be. And hopefully, as we get through 2021, we'll start to be able to go to sporting events again. We'll start to really get back to some normalcy in our lives, which would be great. But the one thing that has been constant is what the NFL said from the beginning, and that is they're going to have a season. They have had a season. They have found a way to not miss one single game, which has been very, very impressive. And that's why we're here at week 16 with every single game played and every single game still on tap to go. Week 15. And that started off with a fantastic Thursday night game. We've now had back-to-back really, really good primetime games. That Monday night game, Ravens, Browns, awesome game. Ended up costing me a trip to the fantasy football finals. If you guys listened to my previous show, I went on a 20-plus minute rant about how I lost my fantasy football semifinal matchup against my friend B-Ray, who I curse him for eternity for what happened. Really, it makes me so mad. But I'm over with it, all right? I'm slowly trying to move on from that. Luckily, I'm in a couple other leagues where I did make the finals, so I still can hang my hat on that. But right now, that was a tough one. So then we got to go to the Thursday game where we had an awesome Thursday night showdown, another divisional game. Los Angeles Chargers, almost said San Diego there, I almost screwed it up, versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And speaking of Oakland, John Gruden somehow started the game off with an Oakland hat on and then had to switch it to Las Vegas. It's like John Gruden's a smart guy, all right? He was in the media for many, many years, so he understands everything about how the media works. I have a feeling he might have put that on maybe on purpose, Let people know. We all know he loved Oakland. He was not very happy about the move to Las Vegas. Maybe he was letting people know he misses Oakland. I don't know. But we saw that. That was a meme that was going around all Thursday, all Friday. And that was a terrific game. Look, when I watched that game, how can you not be more impressed with Justin Herbert, the rookie quarterback out of Oregon? I said this last year. I said this 2 years ago when Justin Herbert was eligible to come out of the draft. I said, if he comes out, he should be the number one pick, either him or Kyler Murray. I understand if you want to take Kyler, and I probably would have taken Kyler too, but I said if you take Kyler, you got to go Justin Herbert right behind him. And then when he decided to go back and play one more year at Oregon, I respected that decision. He got better, and then when he was coming out this year, I said, I love Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was amazing. I think Tua will have a good career, but Justin Herbert is the best quarterback in this draft. And he is the most ready player to play in the NFL and win in this draft as well. And then after that draft happened, if you guys remember, all of my great followers that have been with me since then, remember this episode, I did a draft. I did a whole episode, a whole couple segments on Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Tua. Who's ready to have the most success early, and then who's most likely to have the most long-term success. And I said Justin Herbert is most likely to have the most long-term success. I said Tua might have the most team success early because he has the best coach, and Brian Flores is going to get that team where they need to be, which is happening. And then I said I think Justin Herbert, with his all-around talent, is going to put him in the potential to have the most long-term success out of all the QBs in this draft. Now, I think Joe Burrow will be set up for long-term success as well with his play. I just don't know if I can trust the Cincinnati Bengals organization enough to put the right pieces behind him. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I'm not one of those people that harp on how Cincinnati doesn't spend money, Cincinnati this, that. I actually think that's not true. Cincinnati has spent some money. They have done well in previous draft picks. I just think their owner doesn't want to, spend as much money. He's not willing to pull the trigger on other coaches, fire coaches as quick, stuff like that. I get that. But I think their whole, notion of they don't spend any money, they're not going to put a good team around Burrow is a little bit unfair. The one thing that we have to worry about Burrow right now is just being able to get healthy. and coming back to be the player that we saw he was going to be. Because before he got hurt, he looked like a gunslinger. He looked like he had all the makings to be an all-pro, year in, year out, perennial Pro Bowl player. Hopefully, he will be able to get back to that point. Justin Herbert looks like a Hall of Famer. And look, I'm not even exaggerating. Justin Herbert looks like a Hall of Famer. We talked about this a couple times this season with Daniel Jones, right? And how when we see Daniel Jones out there, you can just tell they kind of guard him, right? They guard him with how much they let him do. The New York Giants and Jason Garrett as the play caller, it's almost like they're protecting him in a sense. And I get it, but it doesn't give us a real idea of what his full potential is. And in contrast, we see a guy like Justin Herbert, who we saw Thursday night, whose ceiling looks like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, obviously he has a long ways to go, but for a rookie, he looks amazing. I mean, for a rookie, he looks as good as you possibly can look. And especially, it's not that he's just a rookie. Remember, he's a rookie who didn't get any burn during training camp. He didn't get a preseason or anything like that to kind of get loose, to understand what the NFL is and how it works. Because remember, Tyrod Taylor was supposed to start for the Chargers this season. And it wasn't going to be Herbert. So Herbert did not get any reps at all with the first team during practice, during the offseason, during any of that stuff. But then that unfortunate situation happened where Tyrod's lung was punctured right before the second game of the season against Kansas City, the defending champs, by the doctor, the Chargers doctor. We all remember that situation. It was very unfortunate. So Justin Herbert was kind of tossed into the fire literally minutes before game time. I mean, before kickoff, it was, hey, put your helmet on, son, you're going in. And if you remember that game, he went toe-to-toe with Mahomes the entire game. And even since then, he's just been superb. I mean, he's been the best you can see. He's now just tied Baker Mayfield's rookie record for the amount of touchdown passes in his rookie season with 27, and he still has 2 more games to go. So he is clearly going to fly by that record. He's going to pass that with ease. I mean, this kid is going to be great. And they have some weapons around him, which is good. So that can help him grow. They have Keenan Allen, who they just signed to a long-term deal. They have Mike Williams. We'll see if they decide to re-sign Mike Williams. They took Mike Williams pretty high in the draft, number 7 overall. He's shown potential. He's shown that he can clearly be a very good receiver in this league. He's more of a deep threat, big hands, high point, can go get the ball. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's been a little bit of an issue. But if they can bring him back, they have a great tight end in Hunter Henry. If they do this right, if the Chargers don't screw this up, if they do this right, get him the right head coach. I just don't think Anthony Lynn is the guy. He's made way too many coaching mistakes. Make sure the O-line is good. Keep the weapons around him. That's the one thing that I worry about with Cincinnati. That O-line is so bad. That O-line has to... I mean, if I'm Cincinnati, every single draft pick this year is going to the O-line. Every free agency move, it's going to the O-line. You've got to get that O-line ready to go for these rookie and young quarterbacks. It's the number one thing. They could be the most talented, best QBs in the world. If they don't have a very good O-line or just at least a stable O-line, it's going to be problems. So you get a good... you get the right head coach, bring in unfortunately, remove Anthony Lynn, bring in the right head coach, bring in someone that can develop his game even more. You've got good pieces to great pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Guys like Bosa, Derwin James, Melvin Ingram. I know he's had a bit of a contract issue, but I think they can bring him back. And if they can do that, the Chargers could be a viable... really quick. They could be they could be a team that is in the mix for a championship pretty quickly if they do this right. If they do this right, they can be there quickly. I mean, it was just fantastic to watch the way Herbert played all season, and especially on Thursday night in the bright lights, all the attention on him versus a team in Las Vegas who really had to win to keep their hopes alive for the playoffs, and that's what he was able to do. And it just seemed, this was the thing that I loved about Herbert the most. It just seemed so effortless. And Troy Aikman actually said this on the broadcast. It seems so effortless for him. It's so easy, right? It's kind of just like the flick of the wrist. He's so tall, he's so big, and he's able to just stand in there and just sling the ball. And not everyone can throw the ball the way he does. Mahomes does it really well. Being able to change your body and turn your wrist into ways where you should not be able to throw the football, honestly. But he does that. Herbert does that. We've seen Mahomes, Rodgers do that, but not many other quarterbacks can do it the way he does. And it's tremendous to watch. And also he can move. The way he can move for a 6'6" quarterback. A lot of quarterbacks that are that tall are not able to move at the pace that he can. He can run for first downs. They put him on QB like options. They'll have him do the whole play action, QB boots. They'll do that with him, and he'll be able to pick up a good 10, 12 first down or run into the end zone. And we've seen that happen. And I get it. And I'm not just specifically talking about this game on Thursday night, because Herbert's been doing this all season. Yes, he had a couple down games recently against the Patriots and stuff like that. He's a rookie. We expect that. Not everyone is able to just walk in there and just be a top-level veteran. Even Mahomes had some ups and downs when he finally got in there. But remember, Mahomes didn't play at all his rookie year because they still had Alex Smith. So he had a whole year of sitting there. That's what the Chargers wanted to do with Herbert, but because of the unfortunate situation with Tyrod, we got to see Herbert, and, obviously we hope everything's all right with Tyrod, but that clearly is going to be the best thing that could have happened for this Chargers organization in terms of getting Herbert out there. Being able to see Herbert this early and see how good he really is. Because now they know, okay, we hit on the most important piece that every franchise needs to hit on, right? Before you can go and be a great franchise, you got to get the most important piece, and that's the quarterback. So now you can take a big sigh of relief because you have your CEO, you have your guy, you have your quarterback. And it's not just a quarterback that you think is going to be good. It's a very, very, very good quarterback, right? It looks like he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback. So you have that guy. You can check that big gift, right, off the list. So you have that down. Now it's, okay, how do we build around him? And again, they already have a bunch of pieces ready to go, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Also, you got Austin Eckler there. You have some guys that are ready to play and play now. You just got to get Derwin James healthy. You got to get Bosa, staying healthy because he's an animal. Ingram, you got to bring him back. Make sure that offensive line's ready to go. And Justin Herbert is going to be able to lead this team to many playoff performances, throughout his long career because he is something special. Now, I want to quickly turn to the other side of the ball before we move into what's going on in college football and what's going on this week with the NFL. And then remember, we also will bring on my guy Emmett Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, to break down all things fantasy football and talk a little football as well. So with the Raiders, look, the Raiders started off 6-3. They were my pick to make the playoffs. They were my dark horse. I came into the year, I said, hey, watch out for the Raiders. I said the Raiders are going to be my dark horse, the team that no one's talking about to make the playoffs. And boy, did I look right. They started out 6-3. They gave Kansas City the only loss of the season. Literally, Kansas City has beaten everybody but the Raiders. The Raiders almost beat them twice. Remember, they scored against the second time against Kansas City with like a minute left, and then Mahomes drove it down the field, ended up throwing a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce with a couple of seconds left to win the game. But they still can hang their hat on the shoulders and say, hey, we did beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I said, okay, they're looking good. They're 6-3. They went across country to Atlanta, and they got their butt whooped by my Atlanta Falcons. And since then, everything has changed. After that, it took the most miserable, the worst call in the history of play calls by Greg Williams for the New York Jets. It took that terrible play call for the Raiders to get by the Jets. Then after that, they come back home to a Colts team that was very hot, and they let the Colts put up 44 on them, 45 on them, and they had to go fire their defensive coordinator. So since then, they've lost 4 in a row. It was almost 5 in a row. If Greg Williams didn't call that miserable play that got him fired. And now they're 7-7, and they pretty much, mathematically, they can make the playoffs, but they pretty much have no shot. It would take a miracle, pretty much. So I don't know what's happened to them. I don't want to put all the blame on John Gruden. I think that Gruden's done a very good job with this team. Remember, this team was 4-12 when Gruden took them over. And since then, they were 4-12. They went 7-9, and now they're probably going to go 8-8 or 9-7, something like that. So they've gotten better, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And he's gotten Derek Carr much better. Derek Carr has had an awesome season. But that defensive side of the ball is pathetic. And it's going to be up to Mike Mayock and Gruden to get those pieces right on the defensive side of the ball, or they're just not going to be able to get it done, because you have to have a better defense than they have. They can't get any pressure on the QB other than Max Crosby, and then their secondary is just pitiful as well. I mean, Justin Herbert was having a field day back there. He looked like Dan Marino back there, and your rookie QB should not look that good. He just shouldn't. So that's going to have to change with the Raiders. I do like where they were at. I really did think they were going to make the playoffs, and they were proving me right until these last couple of weeks. I do quickly, before we move on, take a break here, want to give a shout-out to Marcus Mariota. For all of you that watched that game, the first drive of the game for the Raiders, Derek Carr pulled his groin. It looked really rough. We hope he's all right. Mariota had to come in, and he played his heart out. Mariota absolutely played his heart out. Look, I knew that Mariota was fast, but wow, I forgot about it. I mean, because we haven't seen him play all season, right? Because he's the backup. And I knew he was fast, but he was really fast last night. And it wasn't that he was just fast on Thursday night. He was running hard. I mean, he was diving for that touchdown. He had a couple tough hits while he was going out of bounds. I mean, he was really putting it all out there. He played with a lot of heart. He played with a lot of guts. And you know what? Derek Carr might not come back for the rest of the season. That groin injury looked really rough. This is Mariota's shot to step up and show the league. Maybe it's the Raiders or maybe it's someone else that, hey, I could be a starting QB in this league, all right? Yeah, I know that Ryan Tannehill, he came into Tennessee and he got hot. He beat me out for this job. But look, I did go 9-7. I did make the playoffs twice with the Titans. I am the former second overall pick. Watch me, all right? Because I still have a lot of gas in my tank, and I think I could be the starter for this league for one of your franchises out there. And look, he had a great performance on Thursday night, and I'll be interested to see if he could do that for the last 2 games of the season and kind of put out a little show, some tape for some of these GMs and coaches who are going to need a quarterback this offseason, which actually might be a good amount of teams depending on who's ready to move on from who. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into what is going on in college football, what needs to happen before Selection Sunday. On Sunday, the big 12 o'clock show where we'll find out the college four playoff teams that are in. But more importantly about the college football playoff, I'm disgusted with what they're doing. It's a joke. The way they have gone about this entire season has been awful. And someone needs to stand up and say something about it, and I'm going to do that. We'll talk about it right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. The GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon Zombie. How is everyone doing on this lovely Saturday, wherever you are, however you're listening, and whenever you're listening? We truly appreciate you for taking a little bit of the part out of your day to listen to us. You can always come back. You don't have to listen to the whole show at once. Come back, take a break, and listen to some more of our great takes. And hit me up on Twitter at Kayvon_sports. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to talk about. And we can always bring up anything you guys want to talk about. Sports, football, college, NFL. We'll always dig into a little basketball as well if you want to, with the NBA starting next week. Fantasy football playoffs are going on now. Hope everyone's in good shape with their lineup. You remember 2 games today. We've got Buffalo, who to me right now is the second best team in the NFC behind Kansas City. They have had 2 dominating wins back-to-back against San Francisco, who is a very injured team, but also a very well-coached, hard team to beat with a good defense. They dominated them on Monday Night Football. And then we saw Buffalo destroy really the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday night at home last week. And that was a Steelers team coming off their first loss of the season to Washington. So we thought that they would be hyped up. They'd be ready to go. And Buffalo didn't care. Buffalo took it to them. And right now, Josh Allen is playing MVP level football. He looks like one of the best QBs in the league. Sean McDermott's doing great things with that defense. That defense we thought was going to be one of the best defenses in the league when we started the season. They dropped off a bit. They started to allow a lot of yards, a lot of points. It looks like they're getting back to that form that we thought. You know, Stephon Diggs has been a tremendous add for Josh Allen in that offense, and Cole Beasley's been great. It's been a very, very fun Buffalo team to watch. And right now, they are my second best team in the AFC. I don't know if it will stay that way, but with the way they're playing and with the way Pittsburgh has dropped off, they are the second best team in the AFC right now. Now, the thing about the AFC is it's loaded. It's jam-packed. We've got some really good wild card teams. We've got an Indianapolis Colts team who is on fire right now offensively. Phillip Rivers has really been able to find T.Y. Hilton, spread the ball out. Jonathan Taylor, the rookie out of Wisconsin, has been running hard. So a lot of interesting storylines in the AFC and the NFC as well. So we've got Buffalo heading to Denver for the 4:30 game. And then the night game, we've got the Carolina Panthers going to Green Bay. Remember, Green Bay right now holds the first seed in the NFC now that New Orleans lost to Philly last week. And they have the tiebreaker over New Orleans, beating them head-to-head earlier in the season. I do believe that Green Bay wins out, and I think that they end up with the first seed in the NFC. New Orleans, they decided to bring Drew Brees off IR, and they are starting him this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. what does this tell me? Well, this tells me a couple things. One, it tells me that they really feel the need that they want to win this game. All right, for them to, and I'm not saying that they're rushing Drew Brees back, but it feels like they're doing it a little bit early. Remember, he broke about 11 ribs. He's an older football player. I get it. He's a tough guy, but everybody knows that the New Orleans Saints are not winning a championship without Drew Brees. Taysom Hill, he's been good. He's been a good story. But we saw last week why Taysom Hill is 30 years old and hasn't been a starter in this league yet. Because he just isn't that guy. He can run the ball. He can run the ball well. He can play the time of possession game. But if he gets down and if he has to sling it and step back and sling it over and over and over, it's just not going to work. It's not. He fumbles it too much. He makes some bad reads. He's not a bad quarterback whatsoever. He's actually a pretty decent one. But is he one that can start 16, 17 games a year and get your team to the playoffs and more? I don't think so. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of the year. And I think the Saints believe that as well. But why are they bringing Drew Brees back for this game? Well, it tells me that they feel like that number one seed is crucial. It tells me that they really want that number one seed. And they think the only way to do that is by winning out and hoping that Green Bay loses a game, which is true. And they believe that the only way to win out is with and beating the Kansas City Chiefs is with having Drew Brees there. So that's what I took out of them bringing back Drew Brees now. I do believe that the Saints have a shot at beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs have not been playing very well lately, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I still think that Drew Brees is a little too old, and I just don't think they have enough to actually go deep into the playoffs. But I do know that their best shot is with Drew Brees. Even though he can't push down the ball down the field as well, they're not going to get it done with Taysom Hill. They're just not going to. And for all of you Alvin Kamara fantasy owners, you should be very happy because when Taysom Hill was in the game, it completely took Alvin Kamara out of the pass game because he wasn't checking it down as much as Drew Brees is. Well, now Drew Brees is back. You can expect Alvin Kamara to have another 8, 9, 10 catches, another big, big day. Now that Drew Brees, and he will be all about checking it down to his safety net, which I actually think helps the Saints offense a lot because it puts pressure on the defense to spy on Kamara when they have Kamara roll out into the passing area. So that's something to watch as we move forward. Now, when we go into Sunday, week 15 of the Sunday slate of games, we'll have a bunch of games that are going to be impacted of the playoff position, right? Baltimore, they have to win out. They've got a very easy schedule. They should be able to do that, but they have to win out. Tennessee and the Colts, they're both still fighting for possibly the AFC South winner and also making a playoff. The Browns play the Giants on Sunday Night Football. The Giants, they're still trying to fight for the chance to win the NFC East. So there's going to be a lot on the line for all of these games, and we're going to dive into those as we go. But I want to first dive into college football here because what's going on with college football is really interesting. It has been a year in college football where there have been hundreds of games canceled, a bunch of games postponed. Some schools are playing different number of games than other schools. It's been a mess. It's been all over the place. And they're doing their best. I get that. They're doing everything they can. I get that. But if you look at leagues like the NBA, if you look at leagues like the NHL, they've done things in this COVID year, this 2020 year, to experiment. They've used it as an experimental year, right? Like the NHL, they switched up their entire playoff format. They did the top 4 seeds in both divisions, did a round robin, so that you would be seeded 1 through 4. The rest, they did quick playoff series, right? They decided to allow more teams into the playoffs, and it was best out of 3. If you could win that series, you would move on to the more traditional 7-game format. The NBA did a play-in tournament to get in. They said instead of just having the top 8 seeds from each East and West, we're going to do the top 10, right? And you're going to have to have a play-in to see who can win and who can move on to the playoffs. That's what the NBA did. It was awesome. It was something new, right? It was something different, and why not? Because it's a weird year with 2020. There's a bunch of different circumstances. Make it more appealing for the fans. And what makes it more appealing for the fans? Having more teams involved. Having more teams to cheer for. If your team's involved in the playoffs, guess what? That means you get to keep watching your team play. It all makes sense. But for some reason, one of the greatest sports in the world, college football, does not want to get out of their own way. They don't want to try something new. I don't get it. It makes no sense. They easily could have said we are strictly expanding the playoffs for this year and this year only because it's fair. Why? Because it's fair. Not to mention you make a lot more money, but also because it's fair. Because some teams aren't playing as many games. Other teams are having cancellations that aren't in their control. So to make it fair, we're going to do an 8-team playoff, right? I mean, some people are saying do a 12, do a 16. That's great. Just do an 8. Just expand it to 8. That's all I'm asking for. Because right now, in this 2020 year, every single year where we've had a college football playoff, Alabama has made it 5 out of the 6 years. We've had the college football playoff for 6 years now. Alabama's made it 5 out of 6 years, and they have deserved it every single year. I'm not saying that. Clemson's made it 5 out of the 6 years, and they've deserved it every single year they've made it. Ohio State's made it 3 years. Oklahoma's made it 4 years. I mean, every single year, it is now Clemson, it's Alabama, it's Ohio State, and then it's either Oklahoma, Georgia. That's it, right? It's either Oklahoma or Georgia. You know, in the beginning, we had, it was in Oregon, it was in Florida State, it was in Washington. The last 4 years, it's just been Oklahoma, Georgia, sprinkle in LSU last year. That's it. So every season, every single year, we are now entering the college football season knowing that 3 out of the 4 teams are going to be Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. That 4th team will probably be Oklahoma. Maybe a Georgia will fit in there, here and there, right? It's fun. I get it. Those are the powerhouse. Those are the greatest teams. But if you're telling me, especially this year, that a Power 5, a non-Power 5, right? A Cincinnati, a team that is undefeated, does not have a chance to make it, then you're telling me that they will never have a chance to make it. Ever. Ever. You are telling those group of 5 conferences, like a Cincinnati, who is undefeated, has not lost a game, and has a better resume than a lot of teams out there in the top 10, that if they can't make it this year, in 2020, when some teams have only played 6 games, other teams have only played 8 games, then what are you telling me? You're telling me that they're never going to make it. I mean, Cincinnati has not played the last 2 weeks because of COVID issues going on in their program, and they have found a way to drop down 2 spots in those 2 weeks. They're undefeated. How are they dropping down spots? While you have a team like Iowa State who has 2 losses, and one of those losses is to a Louisiana Raging Cajun team. A Louisiana Raging Cajun team who they lost to in their own stadium. Iowa State. And you know what? You have a team like Coastal Carolina who is undefeated, beat Louisiana at Louisiana, and they're all the way down at 12. But an Iowa State team that has 2 losses and lost to Louisiana is all the way up at number 6? How does that make any sense? They are ruining the sport. The College Football Playoff Committee is ruining the what makes college football so great. It's the suspense. It's that every game matters. And don't tell me that if you go to an expanded 8 playoff, that you start to lose the luster of every game mattering. That's not true at all. Because it would mean every game would matter even more. You know why? Because if you do slip up a game, you still have a chance to make that 18 playoff. So it's like, okay, we lost once, guys. we cannot lose again. We cannot lose again. Because once you start getting in that 2-loss range, then you're out. Or then you're going to be really questionable to making it. So it doesn't take it away. It's not like if you move it to 8, you're going to have 4-loss, 5-loss, 3-loss teams in there. No. You'll have very good teams in there. And you'll have teams that are not in the Power 5 that had a tremendous season, that went undefeated. And guess what? They have a chance to prove that they're worth it. If they go in there and they get their butt smoked by an Alabama, by Clemson, by Ohio State, well, at least they had the chance to say, we tried, right? Because what are you doing? This is such a bigger picture. If you're even telling these other schools that they have no shot to make the college football playoff in a 2020 COVID year, then you're telling them that they're never going to have a shot. And that even expands to recruiting. How can these coaches recruit if the holy grail in this sport is to make the college football, when Cincinnati is going to go up to their recruits with their head coach Luke Fickell, who has done a tremendous job and is one of the best coaches in the country, and he's going to say, hey guys, I led my Cincinnati team to a 10-0 season. We won our conference championship. We won our regular season conference. We dominated everyone. We played a pretty tough schedule, but we still ended up 8th in the country. So you want to come play here? We'll go undefeated. We'll play in a good bowl game, but unfortunately, I can't get you to the college football playoff. That's what you're going to end up telling. I mean, what does that do? What does that do for all these other schools? It ruins it. Look at Georgia right now. Okay, Georgia started off the season slow. They had a really bad loss to Alabama. They did a quarterback change. In comes Jake Daniels. And they have been one of the best teams in the country since. But because they had a bad loss at the beginning of the year, they're out of it. They're done. It's pointless. It makes the rest of their year pointless. So the whole idea of you lose the luster of the every game college football schedule is so wrong. It's so inaccurate. And the way these rankings came out on Tuesday, where Florida, who has been a great team, a really good team all year, but they go and lose at home. And this isn't just a normal at home like 2020's been. They have fans. Florida has fans in their stands. That was a loud stadium last weekend. And they lose to a 3-win, ladies and gentlemen, a 3-win LSU team. A 3-win LSU team, they lose at home. And they only drop one spot in the college football playoff. One spot. When a 9-0 Cincinnati team doesn't play a game, so they stay undefeated, they also drop one spot. How does that make any sense? How is that fair? It's not. And it really destroys the whole point of what college football is. And it takes away the everyone has a chance before the season starts. In the NFL, it's every given Sunday. When the season starts, yeah, we had a terrible year last year, but we feel like we can do it this year. Next season, if everything stays the same, Cincinnati's going to start off the year and Luke Fickell's going to go to his team. Hey guys, we went 10-0. We were amazing. Let's do it again this year and we'll get maybe another good bowl game out of it. That's all I can say. Because they're not going to get a college football playoff appearance. Coastal Carolina, they probably had the best year in the history of their school. I don't think they'll ever have a year like that again. What do they get rewarded by it? Nothing. They get to play in a cool bowl game that is meaningless now because only people care about the college football playoff. You need to reward these schools that do well in recruiting. You need to reward these schools that do well in the way they hire their good coaches. You need to reward these schools and the players that have unbelievable seasons. Coastal Carolina, they might never have an undefeated year again. But guess what? If you had an 8-team playoff, if you had a 10-team, 12-team playoff, they could always point back to 2020 when they went undefeated and they got a chance to play Alabama in the first round of the playoff. Maybe they got smoked, or maybe they have a great underdog story where they end up putting up a great fight. We'll never know unless you change the way this playoff system's happening. And 2020 gave you every single excuse to give it a try. And the reason why it gave you every excuse is because you had the chance to say, let's give it a try, but this is not set for the future, right? You have the excuse of saying, hey, this is 2020. We're going to try out that 8-team, that expanded playoff. If it doesn't work, then we'll go back to the 4. But because it's 2020 and a lot of teams are going to play different amount of games, a lot of games are going to get canceled, a lot of seasons are going to be different. There's going to be a different type of advantage for some teams because they'll have fans. Other teams, they won't have fans. So because of all of that, all of those factors, we're going to say, hey, let's do this. Let's go to an 8-team playoff. Let's go to a 12-team playoff. We'll see how it is. And then next year, when we have the vaccine, when college football and life and is back to normal, then we'll say, you know what, we're going to go back to the 4-team because we really didn't like how it shaped out. The 1 versus the 8 matchup was terrible. The 2 versus the 7 matchup was terrible. Okay, then you know what? We can at least sit back and say, hey, guys, they tried. What else can we say? They at least tried. But the fact that you didn't give it a chance, you didn't give it a sniff even, what does that do? What does that do? It just has us sitting here saying, You're raising a 2-loss Iowa State team that lost to Louisiana in their own stadium, but you're not even moving up an undefeated Coastal team that beat the Louisiana team and doesn't have a loss? What? Like, how does that make any sense? But then you only drop down a Florida team 1 spot after losing to a 3-loss LSU team, an LSU team that Alabama beat by 80 2 weeks ago? How does that make any sense? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. And for the sake of college football, for the sake of the sport that I love so much, it's got to change. It's got to change. I want to hear your thoughts about it. Hit me up on Twitter at Kayvon_sports, at Kayvon_sports. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will dive into much more NFL, the big games going on the weekend, why the Saints are bringing back Drew Brees right now, check up on some scores that are happening in college, and then dive into some of the night games tonight for the NFL and look ahead at the playoff standings. And then, of course, we'll get into the best bets of the weekend as always. This is Kayvon Izami, and you are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. We are entering quarter number 3, segment number 3, as we like to do. 2 more segments to go here. College Football Championship Saturday, Big 12 game has now just finished. Oklahoma 27, Iowa State 21. Big 10 championship game just finished. Ohio State, 22. Northwestern 10. Really good fight by Northwestern. They had the lead going into halftime. They were up 10-6. They made Justin Fields play, to me, his worst college game of his college career. He was awful. He was shaky. He was inaccurate. But, man, that boy Trey Sermon, the running back from Oklahoma, he transferred to Ohio State this offseason. He ran for 29 carries for 331 yards. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is 331 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was just an all-out monster. He put this Ohio State team on his back, and he didn't let go. If it wasn't for them, I don't know if they get out of this game. Ohio State's defense was tremendous, and Trey Sermon was amazing on offense, which he needed to be because, again, Justin Fields only 12 for 27, 144 yards, 114 yards, 2 interceptions, had 35 yards rushing. Really poor day by Justin Fields. I don't think that's an issue moving forward. I will tell you this. Northwestern is definitely the best defense that Ohio State has faced all year. So in terms of projecting towards the NFL draft in April, is this going to be something that college coaches, NFL scouts, NFL GMs, NFL coaches pull up this film and take a look at it? Of course it will be, but I still think that Justin Fields is clearly the number 2 overall pick. I think that this just kind of shows a little bit more of why Trevor Lawrence is above and beyond the best quarterback coming out of this draft. I know that there was some conversation of could Justin Fields actually be better. Justin Fields is a great quarterback. He's a great player. He reminds me a lot of Cam Newton, except way more accurate. He's not as heavy of a runner as Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a very physical runner. Justin Fields is a big dude, but he's more agile, he's quicker, he's more elusive, and he's way more accurate than Cam Newton. But Trevor Lawrence he's Justin Herbert. I mean, what we're seeing in Justin Herbert as a rookie right now, I fully project that we see the same thing in Trevor Lawrence. He's big, he's quick, he's got a rocket for an arm, and he's extremely accurate. So today just showed a little bit of why I think that Trevor Lawrence is clearly the number 1 pick in the draft. And you know what's something interesting here? Because we were talking about this in the first segment, and then we'll get into a lot more going on this very busy Saturday here. But we were talking about Justin Herbert, right? And how good he's looked this rookie year. Take a look at the AFC quarterbacks right now. The young AFC quarterbacks. I mean, with the way the AFC is shaping up for the future, it's going to be a must-watch conference. You're going to have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson. All right, so you have all those 3, right? And then it just keeps on going. You got Tua. You have Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields, because most likely, as long as these last 3 weeks stay the same, which it looks like they will be, you're going to have the New York Jets number 1 overall and the Jacksonville Jaguars number 2 overall. Both of those teams are in the AFC. Both of those teams are going to take Trevor Lawrence and then Justin Fields. So you add those 2 to the mix of young quarterbacks. It's a Josh Allen from Buffalo. It is a jam-packed, Baker Mayfield, if he can keep improving, he's also in that category. So you have guys and then Lamar Jackson. So think about that. I'm just naming, people are popping in my head as we go, but if we recap it real quick, the AFC is going to have all at one time Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield. Now, if you look at some of those guys, we don't know. We're just projecting that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are going to be great. I do believe they'll both be very good pros. But if you look at the guys that we all already could say, wow, they're going to be very good pros. Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, right? Those 3 fully feel like locks. Joe Burrow, he looks great. He looks before he got hurt. As long as he can come back healthy, he'll be a great quarterback. Okay, Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar Jackson is tremendous. So those right there, the AFC is special. While the NFC, you have Kyler Murray, And other than that, he's kind of the only young stud QB that you're kind of like, wow. A lot of older QBs, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff is younger, but we got to see how things go with him as he moves forward. Is that more of a system play? Is that more of a coaching play? That's something we're going to have to tune in and see. We'll see what happens with where teams draft and who gains, but the AFC is definitely in more of a position of hitting on young QBs, while the NFC, they're still kind of holding on to, the older QBs. You still have the Matt Ryan, you still have the Matt Stafford, the Drew Brees, the Aaron Rodgers, and it's just going to be interesting to see kind of how the tides turn, because right now a lot of these AFC teams, as long as the people around them can be built well, as long as Houston can do a good job of building and putting talent around him instead of taking away talent like DeAndre Hopkins and what Bill O'Brien was doing there, which was just, it's unacceptable. You can't do that when you have a great quarterback like Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, is having a career year, and no one's even talking about it because his team's pathetic. And it sucks. So hopefully they bring in someone good at GM, they bring in a good coach, and they get things fixed under his belt, and that team will really move forward in a positive way. But it's fun to watch the type of QBs that we have out there right now, especially in the AFC. I'll tell you this, the NFL is in good hands. They're in very good hands. There are a lot of QBs out there that are just must-watch TV, and it's gonna be fun. So when you look at the college football, this is the GSMC football podcast. I'm your boy, Kayvon. When you look at the college football landscape here, Ohio State won, so they're going to be into the college football playoff. They are now 7-0. I don't care that it was ugly. I don't care that they barely won. At the end of the day, they won. They're going to be in the college football playoff. Oklahoma won. That means they went to 9-2. They will jump up. Texas A&M beat Tennessee. Texas A&M is going to stay at that 5 spot. Unfortunately for Texas A&M, they will not be getting in unless Notre Dame can beat Clemson. If Notre Dame can beat Clemson, then maybe Texas A&M can move into that spot. The question becomes this, because I think we all know who's in, who's out, right? Unless Alabama gets destroyed by Florida, because Florida lost to LSU, I don't think they have any shot of getting in, really. I just don't. So I think the only way, and now that Ohio State won, they're in. So I think the only way that we can hope for chaos, hope for getting things mixed up, is if Notre Dame beats Clemson. That game is about to kick off here in a couple of minutes. If Notre Dame can beat Clemson, then we can sit here and say, okay, should we move in another team? Clemson, 2-loss team, but one of those losses, they did not have Trevor Lawrence because of COVID. Remember that? Would the committee say, hey, it was a close loss? The first time they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, their best player, the best player in all of college football. The second time they had Trevor Lawrence, but this Notre Dame team is legit and they only lost by a field goal or a touchdown. So would they say, you know what? We still believe Clemson is one of the best teams, or would they say, you know what, since they have 2 losses, let's move in a 1-loss Texas A&M team who didn't get to play for a conference championship, and their 1 loss is to Alabama, but it's by like 40 points. That will be the interesting thing. So the only way we can get chaos is if Clemson loses. Now, if Clemson wins, the conversation is going to become this. Should Notre Dame move down? Since Ohio State is 7-0, and they are they are a Big Ten champion, since they have that champion label, should they move up to the 3 spot? And Notre Dame, since they have 1 loss and they're not a champion, not a conference champion, should they move down to the 4 spot? Also, does the committee look at it this way? And look, the committee's never going to tell you that they'll do this, but they're humans. They think about this. They think about these things. They think about the people that want to watch these games, okay? And they might sit in there and say, do people really want to see a Notre Dame Clemson round 3? Because they played once, Notre Dame won. They played again, Clemson won. Now, do they want to see a round 3, or would they rather mix things up and move Notre Dame down to the 4 spot and Ohio State to the 3 spot. Me personally, I would want to see Notre Dame Clemson again. And this is why. Because I want to see Alabama Ohio State. It's strictly for that reason. I do not want Clemson Ohio State. I know we had a great semifinals between them last year. I don't want to see that again this year, though. I want to see Alabama and Ohio State. Because remember the last time those teams played? Back in 2015, the first year of the college football playoff, the semifinal, Urban Meyer was the coach then, Cardell Jones was the quarterback, Zeke Elliott was the running back, and Ohio State gave it to Alabama in the first ever college football playoff. That was in the semifinal. They won 42-35. They went on and beat the crap out of Oregon 42-20 in the championship game. That's the last time that these two programs have played. I want to see a rematch. I want to see Nick Saban take on this Ohio State team. I want to see Justin Fields go up against this Alabama team. I want to see that. I don't want to see Clemson, Ohio State would be awesome. It really would be. It would be a lot of fun. But I think we're giving Alabama the easy way out if we set that matchup up. I just do. I think that Clemson Notre Dame would be much more competitive. And I think that, if we set up an Alabama Notre Dame matchup, I think Alabama's just going to roll Notre Dame. So I'd much rather see Alabama take on a team like Ohio State, and I want to see Justin Fields go up against them. Now, that's just my personal opinion. And I think the only way that happens is if Clemson demolishes Notre Dame. If Clemson beats Notre Dame by just a little bit, then I think Notre Dame stays at that 3 spot because they were undefeated all year until losing to Clemson with the best player in the country. But if Clemson dominates Notre Dame, then and Ohio State's sitting there, even though they only played 7 games, hey, guess what? They're a conference champion, and we all know the committee puts weight on that. Well, let's move them up to the 3 spot and move Notre Dame down to the 4. That's one thing to look for. And we'll see how that plays out. But as of now, Ohio State 22-10 over Northwestern, Oklahoma 27-21 over Iowa State. Remember, Iowa State moved all the way up to number 6, which had no clue why, but they did. So they moved all the way up to number 6. So Oklahoma is now going to get a big jump from number 10, probably all the way up to number 6 to end the year, or a very big jump like that. We'll see. And then remember, tonight we also have undefeated Cincinnati at 8-0 taking on 6-1 Tulsa at 8 p.m. tonight. And then at 8 p.m. also we've got Alabama 10-0 against an 8-2 Florida team. Should be a 9-1 Florida team, but they wet the bed last week against a 3-win LSU team. But for some reason, the committee only dropped them down 1 spot. Very, very odd to me. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, a great holiday, start to their holiday break. If you have some time off, relax, put your feet up. Have some wine, have some cocktails, have some fun with your family. Be safe, be smart. We're not, just because vaccines are here, doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. We still got a long ways to go. Hospitals are filling up. I'm not here to preach. Just want to say I want to be at sporting events as bad as you guys do. And the only way we can get there is if you're smart, if you wear your mask, if you social distance, until we can fully get these vaccines rolling and get going. Week 15, already in the books. 1 game down Thursday night. Los Angeles Chargers beat the Las Vegas Raiders 30-27 in overtime. Back-to-back primetime overtime games here. 30-27. Justin Herbert put on an absolute show. He is a stud. He is going to be so fun to watch for so many years. Darren Waller, 9 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown. Thank you, Mr. Waller. I've got you in fantasy. He is something special. He is something really, really special. Marcus Mariota took over and played the entire game after Derek Carr pulled his groin of the first drive of the game for the Raiders. It looked so bad. Prayers out for Carr. Hope he's all right. But it looked really bad to the point where I don't think we see Carr again this season. Mariota's time to shine. This is Mariota's time to say, hey, I was the number 2 overall draft pick. Hey, I actually took the Titans to 2 playoff wins, or to 2 playoff appearances. I went 9-7. I did actually win a playoff game for the Titans once. I'm not that bad of a QB. Because, look, Thursday night, he showed his speed. He showed his toughness. He showed his heart, his grit. The team played for him. I was very, very impressed with Mariota on Thursday night. Now, we've got an NFL Week 15 treat. 2 Saturday games today, one kicking off in about 30 minutes, 4:30 Eastern Time. The Buffalo Bills, 10-3, going into Denver to take on the Denver Broncos, who are sitting at 5-8. Listen, Buffalo has every reason to win this game. They are, to me, the second best team in the AFC right now, right behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They prove that because they have just played tremendous football over the last couple of weeks, and they beat the number 2 team that I thought was the number 2 team last week in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, I think Buffalo wins this game, but I think that Denver Broncos make it very, very tough on Buffalo. I'm telling you this right now. I think that Denver is going to play Buffalo very well. I think that it's one of those spots where Buffalo is in for a huge letdown game. This is why. They just played 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football in front of everyone. They played amazing. Josh Allen was just off the charts, and he dominated the San Francisco 49ers, right? That was in front of everyone, in front of all of the world watching Monday Night Football. Then, the next week, they play Sunday Night Football against an 11-1 Steelers team, a team that has won 11 games, and they had their first loss last week. In front of everyone on Sunday Night Football, they play tremendous. Josh Allen looks amazing. Stephon Diggs goes for 100 yards and a touchdown, and they win 26-15. So they right now are off 2 of their best wins, 2 primetime wins. Everyone's talking about them. Everyone's saying, oh, it's not Pittsburgh that's the second best team. It's Buffalo. We're talking about Josh Allen like we were in the beginning of the season. Remember in the beginning of the season, ladies and gentlemen, Josh Allen, those first 5 weeks when they started out 4-1, Josh Allen was a MVP candidate. And then he dropped off the last couple weeks after that, and now he's picked it back up. And he has the Bills rolling right now. He has them at 10-3, 10 wins, 3 losses. But now they have 2 big wins. Then on a Saturday afternoon, they go up to Denver, a team that has 5 wins. They're sitting there. They're probably like, this is an easy win here for us. And then they're looking ahead. Why are they looking ahead? Because next week they have on Monday Night Football their arch rival, the New England Patriots. Well, a lot of you would sit there and say, New England's awful this year. Why is that a big deal? The Buffalo Bills this season beat the New England Patriots for the first time in the Sean McDermott era. Sean McDermott has been the head coach there for 3 years. He was 0-6 against New England. Yes, they beat them once. But this is Buffalo's chance to nail the coffin on New England's season. To say, not only have we beat you once, but we are going to actually beat you twice. We're going to sweep you, and we're going to do it on Monday Night Football, and we're going to eliminate you from the playoffs. Now, the Patriots, yes, they still can make the playoffs mathematically, but it would take a lot for them to happen. But mathematically, they can do it. If Buffalo beats them Monday night, it would end it. The mathematics side would be over. So they could sit there and say, we're going to end it. We're going to be the ones that puts this dynasty to end. We're going to be the ones that make sure this playoff run of whatever 18 years straight ends. They're looking ahead to that Monday night game because it's not just the Patriots. It's not just a team that has dominated them for the last 20 years, but it's also in New England on Monday Night Football. The Bills are looking ahead to that game. I think that they win this game, but I think that they squeak by. I would take Broncos plus the points, plus 6.5. I think it's a close game, maybe a 3-point win for Buffalo. They get out of there. They get on their plane. They say, hey, it was an ugly win, but we won. Let's prep for New England. I believe that's what happens. Then we have the night game tonight, Green Bay Packers hosting the Carolina Panthers. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into that game a little bit. Then we'll look at the Sunday games. We'll give you guys my best bets, and we'll talk a little bit of fantasy as well. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. How is everyone doing on this lovely Saturday? At Kayvon_sports is the name. On Twitter, of course. Hit me up. Ask me questions. Ask me content. Let's talk fantasy, bets, football, college, NBA, NFL, you name it, I'll talk it, man. I'll talk it. I know it's a fantasy. I know it's a football show, but I'll talk whatever. It's really cold here right now in North Carolina, and let me just explain this for all of you on the West Coast. Well, you guys would think it's very cold here too. For all of you in the Midwest or up north that laugh at us Southern folks who think 46 degrees is freezing, because that's how I feel. I mean, it's 46 right now, and I got to turn my heat up to like 70. Like I spend a lot of money in the wintertime on my air conditioning bill because I'm just freezing. I'm a cold-blooded person. I'm freezing. So the best part, what I'm getting at here, is first of all, if it's snowing, I love cold. All right, I'm good with it if it's snowing. I love snowboarding, all that stuff. I'm good with if there's snow on the ground. But I just find it so miserable if it's just a normal dry day and it's freezing. And nothing is worse than if it's a rainy, freezing day. That is just super depressing. So what I got on right now and why I'm bringing this up is it's the perks of being able to do this podcast, this show, in my house is just A100, right? If I had to go to a studio, I'd have to dress up a little bit. The temperature in studio, I've done a lot of shows in studios. It's cold, or it's hot, depending on how they run it there. If it's cold, you have to bundle up because you can't mess with the temperature. So it's rough, So for me right now, I'm doing it in my home. I've got a ballin' robe on. And just real quick, before all you guys freak out, and I'm mainly talking to my guys out there right now, because girls, they love to wear robes, right? That's their thing. And when you hear a guy wearing a robe, you might think, do guys really wear robes? Well, guys out there, if you don't have a robe, or if you never wore a robe, I'm telling you, go invest in one. It's life-changing. It really is, because I was at the same thought process. I never thought it was just strictly for girls or anything, but I never really wrapped my head around putting on a robe. So one day, my girlfriend has a couple robes laying around, and they're a little bit bigger because she likes them to be bigger on her. So I tried it on, and it was like snuggling up to a bear. I mean, it was warm, it was cozy, and ever since then, I went and got one, and I can't take it off. I truly cannot take it off. So I'll walk around with my boss robe on. I'll tie it. I'll feel like a G. I'm telling you guys, get yourself a robe. You don't know what you want for Christmas? Ask for a robe. Get you a Falcons one, or for me, it would be a Falcons one, whatever team you like. Go on NFLshop.com. they have your team's robe, and it's sweet. It's worth it. I love it. If I were you guys, I would look into it. Something that thought I would just cross by you with, because I'm telling you, I rock it. It's great. It's great. Robes are the way to go. Make fun of me if you want, but first, try the robe out. And if you think I'm crazy, then make fun of me. But right now, you got to try the robe out first before you start to make fun of me. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. I hope everyone's having a great day. There's a lot going on in the sports world today, especially this Saturday. We just talked to you about how we have a big-time Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos game kicking off here at 4:30. We've got the ACC championship game starting right now. Notre Dame is up 3-0 against Clemson. Oklahoma beat Iowa State earlier in the day, so they are the Big 12 champions for like the 5th year in a row. Ohio State beat Northwestern, so they are the Big 10 champions. And then later tonight, we've got the Green Bay Packers hosting the Carolina Panthers. Now, this is an interesting matchup because there's really not much involved for Carolina in this, right? You don't have Christian McCaffrey playing. It's just they're 4-9. The season's kind of over for them, but they're a hard fight. They're a hard fought team. Like their head coach Matt Rule, he is a really good coach. He plays to win. He makes sure his team is ready to go always. Like they're not just gonna lie down and let nothing happen, right? That's just not gonna happen. They're going to give it their all. And the Packers, they played amazing football, but they're not known to just blow a team out. They'll kind of keep a team in there hanging around for a little bit like they did last week with Green Bay, but they'll eventually pull away and win. But it's definitely more important to the Packers, all right, because the Packers are sitting there at 10-3. They're 5-1 at home. They're 10-3, and the reason that's so important because they're 10-3, and so are the New Orleans Saints. But if you guys remember, earlier in the season, Green Bay beat New Orleans in a Sunday night showdown in New Orleans. So because of that, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So they are the number 1 seed overall right now in the NFC, which is huge. I can't stress this enough. When you're the number 1 seed in the NFC, it's a very, very big because you're the only team to get the bye, right? In the AFC, NFC, only one team from each conference gets the bye this year. That's how it is because we went to a 7-game playoff format. That's how it's going to be moving forward as well. Like, this is how the NFL is going to be from here on out, which I like. I think, and I've expressed this before, but quickly, I think it's much better for all fans because, one, when you have a season that your team is not doing the best, but they're doing okay, right? So you start off rough. You still have hope because guess what? There's an extra playoff spot, right? So it's not like you have to have a 9-7, 10-6 season just to make the playoffs. Maybe you can slip in at 8-8 if the conference is having a bad year. Or maybe at least you're still fighting for a playoff spot down the stretch when it's you're 7-7 or you're 7-6 or 5-8. Down the stretch you still have games to play that are meaningful instead of being completely out of it. And then it's also competitive because the teams up at the top that are doing really well, it gives them incentive to keep playing hard because they're fighting for one spot instead of 2 spots. They're fighting for that big number 1 seed to say, hey, I have the bye and no one else does, right? So that's a very, very big deal. Really, really big deal. That's when it comes down to why it's such a big deal for the Packers. They want to keep winning out. And I think that they have a good chance to keep winning out, to win out this season with what their schedule looks like, right? If you look at their schedule for the last 3 games here, they're home to the Panthers, they're home to the Titans. That's Sunday Night Football next week, and then they're at the Bears. So I do believe that the Panthers will give them a run for their money, make it a little bit of a tough game, but I think that they will eventually win that game. by a field goal or so. A touchdown or so. And then I think that Titans game will be tough. The Titans play a brand of football that is perfect to the Packers' weakness. And what is that? That's running the football, keeping Aaron Rodgers off the field, right? What did we see last year when the Packers had a great 13-3 season? They ended up losing in the NFC title game because they lost to a team that was very, very good at running the football. The Packers' defense is not very good. That's by far their biggest weakness. And they were able to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. That's what we saw the weakness for this year as well. They lose to teams that can just destroy their defense and keep their best player, one of the best players in the league, Aaron Rodgers, off the field. The Titans can do that with Derrick Henry. They can pound the football all day. They don't even need to throw it, but if they do, Tannehill's able to make those throws. They've got guys like A.J. Brown. So they can be a team that could come into Green Bay on Sunday Night Football and possibly beat the Packers. I do still think, though, the Packers are hot. They're playing well. I think that they can win out. But I think that this is why Drew Brees is playing this week for the Saints. Because I think New Orleans is looking at this and saying, look, there's a possibility that the Packers could slip up once out of these last 3 weeks. They maybe could lose to the Titans next week. If that happens, we want to be prepared. We want to be able to win out so we can say, hey, we have that spot. We can take over that number 1 seed. And they know to beat the Chiefs and to win out, they're going to need Drew Brees there. And that's why I think they're bringing Drew Brees back now. Me personally, I would not care as much for that number 1 seed. I would let Drew Brees heal as much as possible. Now, they're saying he's fully healed, right? They're saying he's fully healed. They're saying that he's ready to go. They're saying that he's looked great in practice. He's gotten better in practice every week. They're saying all of that stuff. That's exactly what they are expressing. I don't know if I believe that, right? Don't get me wrong, I don't think that the Saints would put him out there if he wasn't healthy, or if they thought it could, hurt him more, but it can hurt him more. So I don't think that they would put him out there unless they fully feel like he is ready to go. I don't think they would just listen to Brees, who I'm sure is telling them he's ready to go because he's a competitor and he's tough. But let's be real here, guys. Broken ribs or something. And Bart Scott said this on ESPN, their morning show Get Up on Friday. He said, this is football. Don't think that the Chiefs are not going to be looking over there on the sidelines and say, hey, we understand that Drew Brees has some broken ribs or had some broken ribs. We get that. We might hit him a little bit harder. It's football, okay? And I'm not advocating for them to do that, but this is what Bart Scott said, and he's right. The Chiefs are going to, when they go sack him, they might put a little bit of emphasis on that landing, right? They might say, you know what? Let me take a roughing the passer penalty one time earlier in the game by falling on Brees a little bit and shaking him up. They might do that. They're going to test out Drew Brees. And Drew Brees is one of the toughest guys in all of football. And as a Falcons fan, it's tough saying that, but it's true. It's true. I can't lie. Drew Brees is a very tough football player. He plays through injuries. He plays through injuries all the time. He wants to be out there. And he had some seriously broken ribs, 11 to be fact, and he's let him heal. And the Saints feel like that he is in a good enough spot where they can let go and let him go play. They for sure know that Taysom Hill's not going to get the job done. Because against the Chiefs, you're not going to hold Patrick Mahomes and them down. You're not going to win a 17-14 game. It's just not going to happen, right? What is going to happen, though, is you can outshoot the Chiefs. You can out-offense the Chiefs. It can happen. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. We saw Miami almost do it. They got Patrick Mahomes off guard. They got a couple picks here and there, but they weren't able to put up enough points. To beat the Chiefs, I've been saying it all season, you have to have a team that can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes, that offense can score when they score, but also make crucial turnovers when turnovers and stops need to happen. Can the Saints do that? I don't know if their offense is good enough to go toe-to-toe. I do think that their defense is good enough to make crucial turnovers and crucial stops, but I don't know if their offense is good enough. I don't know if it's good enough I do know that it's definitely not good enough with Taysom Hill there. And I don't think it's good enough with Drew Brees there. I do know it's an upgrade with Drew Brees, and I think it's a big upgrade, but I don't know if it's at the point where it's, let's say, good enough to outscore a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who are one of the most prolific offenses that we've seen really ever in the NFL. And the reason I say that is because look, Drew Brees, who is a phenomenal, Hall of Famer, right? But at this point in his career, he's not capable of pushing the ball down the field. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, and I should have said this earlier, Michael Thomas is out. Michael Thomas is not playing for this game. I think he has that ankle injury that he's been dealing with all season, and I actually think the Saints are going to be putting Michael Thomas on IR because of that ankle injury. That's what's being reported, that they'll be putting him on IR. And if you guys remember, IR is different this year than former years. Usually, if you put someone on IR, they're supposed to miss at least half of the season. This year, because of COVID, you have to miss at least 3 games. That's it. Then you can come back. So looks like they're putting Michael Thomas on IR, but they fully expect him to be ready to go for the postseason. See, that's smart. If Thomas is dealing with this ankle injury that just won't go away, why not rest him for these 3 weeks, let him get 100%, bring him back for the playoffs? I get that. That right there is smart. So when you don't have Michael Thomas, and even if they did have Michael Thomas, I just don't think Drew Brees is able to push the ball down the field enough to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. Now, can their defense slow him down, keep it close, and can it be like a 28-30 type game? Maybe, but I think you might. I think your defense is going to need to help you out where they maybe get a touchdown score or something like that. We'll have to see. But what Drew Brees is going to help with is he's going to be better with the ball security. He's not going to fumble it all the time like Taysom Hill was. And he's going to use Alvin Kamara better, which Alvin Kamara is a weapon. You need to use him. Yes, we make fun of Drew Brees for all the check down passes, but it's actually smart because Alvin Kamara is their greatest weapon, including Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara is their greatest weapon. He can do it all. He's so hard to tackle. He can run it, he can catch it, he can do everything. And when you're hitting him out of the backfield, that is when he's at his best. Yes, he's a running back, he can run through the tackles, but he's not a traditional running back. He is much better with catching the ball in space and letting him do his thing. And when Drew Brees is out there, they're able to use Kamara more. They barely ever used Kamara that way with Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill was just always looking to push the ball down the field. And that, I get it. Taysom Hill, he's young in quarterback age. He's not able to read through his all progressions. It's just different. So I get that. But this is a very, very important game for the Chiefs because they're 12-1. The Steelers are 11-2. They don't want to slip up. They don't want to lose a game because, again, you want that number 1 seed. So the Chiefs are trying to win out. It's a big game for the Saints because they're 10-3. And then remember, if they lose another game, the Rams are sitting there at 9-4. The Seahawks are sitting there at 9-4. The Bucs are at 8-5. Now, listen, the Saints beat the Bucs twice this season. So the Saints would really have to lose out, and the Bucs would have to win out to end up losing the division. But look, the Saints play the Chiefs, the Vikings on Christmas Day, and then the Panthers. So they could possibly lose to the Chiefs and the Vikings. They could. So this is a huge game because they don't want to lose a couple of games and then start to drop. Because right now they're sitting there at 10-3 and they're in the 2nd seed. So it's not only that they're trying to regain that number 1 seed back, they're also not trying to drop to the 3 seed or the 4 seed, right? The Rams are right there on their butt at 9-4. The Seahawks are right there on their butt at 9-4. And then the Cardinals, the Bucs are sitting there at 8-5. The Bucs have the easiest schedule to end out. They've got the Falcons, they've got the Lions, they've got the Falcons. I love my Falcons, but it's not a great schedule. It's not a great schedule for the Bucs. So they're going. It's not a great schedule like as in they're going to dominate those 3 games, right? So it's not a great schedule for my Falcons, what I should say. All right, so they're going to win out. They're going to go 11-5. Unless they have a slip-up somehow here or there, I believe they'll win out and they'll go 11-5, which means the Saints are sitting at 10-5. If they lose out, go 10-6, they would end up losing that division. Now, I don't think they'll lose out. I think they'll at least beat the Panthers at the end. And they'll probably beat the Vikings, too, on Christmas Day. But remember, that game's going to be very important for the Vikings as well because they're also still fighting for a wild card position. All right? So this is a really, really big game for the Saints. But I think the most important takeaway is how does Brees play and how does he react to getting hit? That's what I'll be watching as we move forward. He's going to have a lot of protection on his ribs. He's going to have those protecting guards, all of that stuff. How does he react to getting hit, and how does he play? Is it going to be an issue? That's what I'm going to be watching for. And I can't wait to see how he moves forward, and that's going to be very, very key, and I can't wait to see how the Chiefs play it. Do they put a little oomph when they hit him? It's football. Do they do that? We'll have to see. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. Really, really appreciate all you guys hanging out with us on this great Saturday. I hope everyone had a really good weekend. Happy holidays to all of you guys. Seriously, enjoy yourself. Sit down, relax. Enjoy your time off if you have time off. Enjoy your family time if you get it. It's been a tough year for a lot of us, for all of us most likely, and it's just, it's Christmas time. Try to enjoy it as best as you can. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, which is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really, really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. Happy holidays to all of you. Enjoy. We'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy your weekend.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.